Yeah, hello and welcome to this video. This is a new part of the chess openings Q&A, and there's so many questions. I'm not going to be able to answer them all in that video, but I definitely want to record one and answer a couple of them, in particular the ones that don't require some longish explorations on my part. Some of the questions I can answer quite easily because it's just what I know anyway. I don't need to do any work on that. So let's start with one that is a bit older, and that is about the English defense on the black side. This is the English defense, and that is actually a quite okay opening for black against d4. It is a bit risky, but it's not terrible, and I've played it myself with black quite a bit, mostly in games where I wanted to unbalance the whole issue a little bit. And the answer, the question by Douglas here is, what is the best line against this? What is the most testing line? That is quite easy to answer. That's definitely e4. And after that, you don't have an easy time, honestly. After bishop b7, the move that is critical is bishop d3. I don't see knight c3 being too threatening. There are also some ideas there for white, but I don't think this is the main problem. Bishop d3, I think, is the most testing line. The problem is that the aggressive approach with f5 doesn't quite work because white can take. This is, I know it's not totally clear cut, it's a bit of a work to check out, but it is difficult for black to play, very risky. And the problem is that the non-f5 lines are also not that great. Some players went knight c6 attacking here and then played knight b4, but this is at the end a big center for white that you don't attack. This has been a move that has been tried a lot, but here white has an excellent reply in king f1. This is, however, not very well known, so this is something that you can definitely try to make work. Yeah, king f1 basically tells black, okay, your bishop there doesn't do anything, and you probably have to move it again. So this is, I think, what is the most testing line, the most aggressive line, and that is what I would recommend to white players to play against it. The other part of the question here by Douglas was, what should he do against an early a3? Should he go for a queen's gambit declined structure, so play some sort of d5? This is possible. Probably that will transpose to a more of a Queen's Indian type of game with knight f6 and d5. But against a3, I don't see anything wrong with getting some f5 based setup played. This is one of the, let's say, reasons why you would delay the development of the knight. I think this line with d5 is probably slightly better for white, but it's very complicated and definitely a playable option. In general, playing those kind of those openings that are somewhat ignorant of the center, I mean, you allow this. And there are reasons why, if you look at the very top level, you rarely see white getting those 3 pawns in the center. They all play like d4, d5, or d4, knight f6. Stop that. There are reasons why the top guys don't really risk that. And if you play this kind of stuff with black, you should really put some study time in and work something out. Like, if you play this and somebody who really is knowledgeable plays king of 1, you shouldn't start to think, but have some idea. And it's not like you're lost or anything, but it's just like, this is super annoying if it happens and you have no clue what to do. There's a quite well-known game by a women's world champion, Zhu Wenjun. I think she's the current world champion again, right? With white against Nigel Short, where Nigel really got totally killed with black. So, and this is about the English defense. So I can go to the next one. The next one is, what about the bird defense in the Rui? Is this playable on an 1800 level? Yeah, of course. Yeah, this line is not fantastic. We have to be honest there. It's not a fantastic opening line. but it is a playable line. You're not going to lose by force or anything. And you sometimes see reasonably strong players play that as a surprise weapon. So white will take, and now you can castle or you can play bishop c4. Both moves, I think, are very much relevant. And it is a playable line. I think it is quite risky, and I'm not really sure. I'm not so sure about the incentive, because you rarely get something great out of it. I've looked at this actually with black, because I mean it's something that no white player ever studies. So I think you can make a point that no white player will know stuff, but I am not quite sure what a really good outcome for black looks like in this line. So I'm not a huge fan of this line with black, but if you somehow feel attracted to it and invest a bit of time, you can definitely play it. Would I play it against a strong player that is prepared? No, I wouldn't. But if you play in your local club competition and want to surprise somebody, why not? However, if it comes to surprises, you can do many things against a way that nobody probably will know. And I'm not so sure if I would really go with the bird. For example, let's say you study the Schliemann or Janisch gambit, set different nines. This is something where you can really get an advantage with black if they play something weird, if they don't know what they're doing, or you can do something offbeatish that is not so committal. For example, I recently saw a game where Magnus in a rapid game played bishop b4. That looks wacky and it's not fantastic, but I think it's less of a committal decision like the bird is. But if you like it, I think with some study time you can definitely make it work on the 1800 level, absolutely. Okay, the next question is a very general one about my motivation behind switching openings over the years. Of course, I've switched quite a bit over the years, and it is a very broad question, and I don't know how much of a storytelling video I want to make out of this. The main reasons why I switched openings over the years, the main reason is actually simply the desire to study something new, see something different, explore new things. Nowadays, okay, I'm still an active player, but nowadays my curiosity is basically satisfied by starting new opening projects, like writing new books and videos for Chessable, whatever. And all this is done to satisfy my simply my curiosity. What is playable, what is interesting, and so on. So I didn't have that many reasons over the years to discard an opening due to score. The only thing that I really discarded due to score is the French. I played it a lot, and I scored really, really badly. And that was around 2004, 2005, when I simply got fed up with that. I lost too many games, and in fact, I think I really stopped this too late. I should have stopped that earlier. And back then, when I saw, okay, I should abandon the French, I turned to with black for the first time studying e4, e5. I never did that. And I'm still playing this as my main response, but I'm mixing it with all kinds of openings, even the French once in a while. I really had a bad experience with this opening, but it is not because it is bad or anything. That's not the case. It's just like, it's not that not everybody can play everything. You need to really develop a feel for things. And I, over the years, have found that I simply have problems with black in structures that are very typical of the French with e5. I'm not saying the advanced variation in particular, but just the structure, that I struggle with this lack of space on the king side. It's just that I have problems. I don't have a good feel for when you should play f6 and so on. So it's more like me not being able to play it well. I also wouldn't play, let's say, the king's gambit well. It's just like, it's not my kind of game. And That is what I recognize. So for me, stopping white from advancing e5, my way of doing that is to play e5 myself, so I'm not in a space disadvantage. But I have switched away from many openings over the years, not due to score, simply because I wanted to learn something new. For example, I always had good scores with black in the King's Indian. I played that in the 1990s. My score was excellent. Really, I had no reason to ever abandon the opening. Or I also had good scores with black in the Slav. That I played that later. But I still switched away simply because I learned new things and wanted to explore something else. My main recommendation always is to, against with black in particular, against the main openings e4 and d4, you should have one line, one complex, one opening that you know well as possible, as your time permits, and make that a main defense that you can always use if you don't know anything better or have no particular idea for a game. Then stick to what you know best, and then you can always branch out from that. That is what my recommendation is, and that is what I'm basically doing. For example, like I play e4, e5. If you just like wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm going to play that and then play some Rui, whatever. But in a particular game, I might play anything, because I think for that game, why not? Why not risk it? Depends on the opponent and so on. But you should know something well. It is not such a great thing to know 5 openings on a mediocre level. I think it's better to know one thing well, and then occasionally, set some surprise that also will, lead you to explore new things and have some. Sometimes you need a little bit of spark. If you do the same thing, the absolutely same thing every single game, I think that makes you it's just not so interesting. But don't do the switcheroo all the time. You should know something really well. Okay, I've got all those here covered. That's a good question here by, I mean, not that the others are bad, it's just like, it's an interesting question. It's by Duvupov. Why did you choose the Rossolimo and Moscow variation for my Keep It Simple repertoire and not the regular Alpin, which would have been even simpler? Yeah, that's true. I chose to play the Alpin against e6, but against d6, bishop b5, and against knight c6, I also went bishop b5. Why did I not recommend 2c3? There are a couple of reasons. There are a couple of reasons. First of all, there's one very basic reason, and that is objective strength. It's just that the Rossolimo and the Moscow, I think, are setting more problems for black than the Alpin, where black basically, I mean, it depends on what kind of level we're talking. The Rossolimo and Moscow, they are completely valid main lines up to Magnus, up to the highest possible level. While nobody plays c3 because black can basically equalize with a couple of lines. That is not so relevant on the amateur level. I'm totally aware of that, so I could have gone for c3 and it's totally fine. However, I thought that if you incorporate those lines, you actually have a little bit more variety, because if you play c3, you will get the same kind of pawn structures every single game. You will get IQP positions a lot, and positions like if you go c3, you will get those positions a lot where you get the IQP, or you will get this particular structure a lot. And of course, you can get that from the e6 type of variation that I'm recommending as well, but that's just a small percentage. While if you play the Rossolimo and learn that, and for example, they play in the most popular move g6, I do recommend to castle. But now from here, you have the choice later to expand into a multiple, like a huge variety of positions. You can take, You can play c3, d4. There are all kinds of things, like you castle, like here. I recommend to do this, for example, and then play knight c3. But you can also play c3 in this position, or you can play c3 here. And they lead to totally different structures. So I felt that if you learn the Rossolimo, for example, same applies for the Moscow, but a little bit less, it's a better investment, let's say, for the future. That is what my consideration was. You can more easily expand from that, yeah, and this is the main motivation. Plus a little bit, it's about the quality. I think the Rossolimo sets more problems than c3, which does not say you shouldn't play c3 if you like it. It's totally okay, also on move 2. But I felt this is more, it is something that people can use for a longer time with more flexibility. And also, honestly, it's also sometimes what I want to investigate myself, because I think about what I play myself, what I recommended to students, and so on. And bishop b5 is just a great way of playing here against the Sicilian. Okay, the next question. It's a really long one. Okay, I have to recall again what it is. Yeah, okay, sorry, it's a really long text. And I do agree to some sorts. It's about gambit lines, and we're talking about gambit lines like this, yeah, where the author says that he enjoys playing them from time to time because it leads to energetic gambit play, something like this, I assume, and maybe some f3. Yeah, well, you can probably guess that I don't think it's a good idea to play that all too often, because in many of those lines I really don't see any compensation at all. But I mean, it's your own responsibility, yeah, what you play, especially if it is not the most important game ever. Do it, yeah. If you play those gambits and you are playing in the same team as I am, yeah, I'm going to have a few honest words with you. That's not a good idea to play if you're in a team competition. I really don't think that's so great. But if you want to experiment, of course, why not? This, for example, looks odd, if you ask me. I mean, where exactly is the compensation? I will even do this next. The main issue, by the way, with this f3 stuff is often that it just weakens a lot. It's not just that the pawn is a problem. Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question by TGWNN. What to do against the Alpine, the c3 still with black, and what to play if you don't want to play, if you don't want to fall asleep. Yeah, he mentioned that d6 was played by Magnus Carlsen in a Bento Blitz. Sure, I mean, that is a playable move, of course. It is not the best possible line, maybe, but it's definitely not going to lose for you. Like the problem with this is a little bit that if white does something enterprising like taking, it can be interesting, but if they play something normal like develop, I feel that those positions are sometimes a little bit one-sided or a little bit boring. Let's say you don't really get the goal of complicating matters. It is difficult to complicate matters. I have some general recommendations against the Alpine. For example, I like many d5 lines, because in my personal experience, if you want to win, it is often not a bad thing to get a structural imbalance, and here quite often white will get the IQP, which at least you know what to play against, and there is some imbalance in play. I think in fact there are quite a number of lines that are satisfactory here, and it's a matter of taste what to choose. You have to check, however, what you play here, because in some cases, let's say you play e6 for whatever, the time on off or so, and they play c3, then you are seriously limited, of course, and it is a little bit useless to learn two different lines for 2c3 and 3c3. Most of it is a matter of taste. I personally like d5 lines more than knight f6, but this is more of a general thing, or more of a taste thing, let's say. It's not an objective value. In those lines, if you want to unbalance, I think it's not a bad idea to look into stuff that is related to this structure here with d6. You can sometimes put the bishop here, knight to d7. This I don't think is very drawish, honestly. But it's possible that white is not better, but it's something you give white a little bit more than he usually gets, but in return it is like non-symmetrical and more of a fighting position. So that is also a thing to play. What I personally play is this. But again, there are many lines. I've switched around a lot. If you just want to make a draw, you can play that, where white has basically nothing. This is one of the reasons why c3 is, in my opinion, yeah. I mean, if you want to draw against c3, you can do that, and you go home, basically. I mean, white has like this minimal of an advantage if he plays 15 moves of theory, and nobody does that. So, all right, and this is not what you wanted. Yeah, you wanted to fight, but this is something where you can kill off the game if you want. I had this in the Bundesliga, in the second league, once. We had exactly this game, and basically draw agreed against a 2,500 player who also didn't know that line. And you won't find much for white, I'm sure. Maybe this little bit, it's not a lot. Okay, the next one, Atliam, I don't know, asked any recommendations for winning chances as black against the exchange Slav. Yeah, these are the good ones, yeah. With black against the exchange Slav. Yeah, it's difficult, obviously. My main advice is, honestly, you have to have the right attitude. If you play against a good opponent, like your rating or something around your rating, you play a game. If it's a draw, it's fine. Yeah. If you're in an absolute must-win situation, like you have to win at all costs, I'm not sure that I would play d4, d5, c4, c6. I mean, you can do it. It has been done by players. But I don't think in a must-win that is the best possible approach. If you just have like a random game where you're the better player and they play the exchange and you want to win, my main advice is to just be totally aware that the game will last for a while and you have to simply grind it out. It will take a long time, and I've never lost with black in the exchange Slav, and I've won a couple of games. I've won a huge percentage, in fact, against slightly weaker players. And mostly those games took like 70 moves, but at the end, you often prevail. In terms of what should you play, you can try a couple of things to unsettle white. Yeah, for example, if they start with this move, you could, it's a little bit risky, but you could actually look at e5. I think that would irritate many people. And that move is not terrible. It's about this. It can be quite a shocker. This is better than it looks. Maybe at first you think, okay, what is that? Yeah, what is black doing? But it is not so bad. This is an interesting line. You can also investigate ideas with the quick queen to b6 if they develop the queen side early on, which is not bad for white. But here, for example, if white wants to play for something, he has to play e3. Yeah, e3 is the best move. And then you can think about snatching the pawn at the right moment, which will sharpen things up. People who are ever playing for a draw here, who just want a draw, they will probably play something that will help you a little bit. Yeah, like queen d2 or so. It's not terrible, but it's not really testing for black. Whatever you do, you will never get something fantastic. Yeah, it's just like, it's such a solid line. What I think is interesting, if you play for a win, want to play for a win, is to actually think about playing something that looks a little bit passive at first, which is a bit counterintuitive, but do something like with e6, where you keep many pieces on the board, bishop e7, castles, and just keep this. I know it looks bad, but it's tough to use or tough to really exploit as white. And just try to keep as many pieces on as possible. I personally have played a6 all over the years when I played the Slav, and then most of the time I got this out and traded it off and then tried to win some ending, which most of the time worked, but it takes 80 moves. But that is just what it is. There's no way out of that. You cannot really set the board on fire in the Slav exchange. An interesting way of playing, by the way, if they play this particular move order, is knight e4 or knight h5. But if white knows the stuff, it is still going to be a dry symmetrical game. That is just the nature of the position. Okay, the next question. This is a bit general here by Ela Gila. If I could go over some openings, lines which lead to good endgames for both white and black. Yeah, if there would be something like that, the whole world class would play it. Yeah. However, you can, of course, if you want to go for endings, if you like endings, you can, of course, adjust your opening repertoire a little bit to go for more endings than you probably, let's say the percentage of openings leading to endings differs from opening to opening a little bit. Yeah, there are some that are somewhat more endgame heavy, maybe. And maybe if you enjoy endings, it is probably not a bad idea to focus on openings that lead to healthy pawn structures, which is often a key thing. For example, I'm giving you one. If you, let's say you're white, yeah, and you play like this, it is probably not the best idea if you have an ending in mind. It's probably not the best idea to play the Semish in the Nimzo. Like here, your whole queen side is bad, it's weakened, and white is basically going, strategically speaking, all in on move 4. Yeah, white wants to play a big center, attack on the king side. I've played some interesting blitz games with this over the years on the white side, and it led to many attacking wins, but you also suffer in any ending. Like if you reach an ending here, you really have to collected some other pluses on the way, because the queen side is toast. Yeah, it's just toast. So you can, of course, look for lines that are less of this type, where you don't have long-term strategic weaknesses. Yeah, a very endgame heavy opening, for example, is the Catalan. It can get sharp, but there are many lines. If we, for example, look at the total main line here, this d takes. I mean, I know that looks like a deep line, but it's something that you get on the board. Here, for example, there are many lines that are extremely endgame heavy and that can be played pretty much without not a lot of deep theoretical knowledge. There are many trades. It is rather dry. There are some players who have a very endgame heavy style. For example, a classic example is Ulf Andersson, from a top player in the 1980s and 90s mostly. Ulf had many openings in his repertoire that would lead to very strategic positions that are very endgame heavy. If you want to look at another player who is a very endgame oriented player, it's not so well known and not as high rated as Ulf was, is Keith Arkle, Grandmaster Arkle from the UK. He's a great endgame player, and he has his whole repertoire set towards getting those little nibbles and trying to win in the ending. It's not a bad idea to get inspiration from players who have a very strategic style and then see what lines are they playing. Okay, The next question by SWK is that in my Keep It Simple repertoire, there is a common theme that white is playing for a pawn storm in the king side in many lines. And this is true. For example, I'm going to put something on the board. And he's referring to lines like this, where let's say it doesn't really like take, where I'm recommending to play this and this. There are also similar lines where the bishop is here. And he asks basically, why doesn't white develop his light squared bishop before he starts pushing the pawns? It seems contrary to traditional wisdom of developing all your pieces before attacking. I see what you add, but the thing is that the bishop on f1 does not really need a different square. It is nowhere really in a better position. The only reason why you would maybe move it is that you would connect rooks. Other than that, it's very rarely seen that this bishop has a square to go to. In the English attack, in the Sicilian, the bishop is also quite often just simply staying on f1. You want to save the time associated with moving it, and often the way the game develops later points to a good square. Yeah, you only know where it is useful later. For example, in the Sicilian, you sometimes see cases, if we put the Sicilian on the board. I don't really, if somebody knows this very well, he will probably point out that I'm not playing in the most precise move order or something. I just want to make a point about the position type, let's say. You have oftentimes stuff like this where white is pushing on the king side. And here, for example, sometimes putting the bishop here can make sense because that is a target. I see that here knight c4 is a thing, but like here, it is just more important to get the pawns rolling than put a bishop onto e2 or something. Yeah, it's just more important. And often later, according to the way the game progressed, then you know better where to put the bishop. So this is actually rather common, that the bishop is not moving in those attacking formations. The next question is that, yeah, Keep It Simple d4 is coming in late May. Any teasers we can look forward to? I don't really want to talk too much about any details. I have the lines lined out. Basically, I know what I'm going to recommend. For some openings, the whole thing is almost completed. For some, it's not. I know what to do, but I don't have detailed analysis. I'm very happy, really, I have to say, with what I'm having so far. I'm looking forward to play these things myself. I'm not doing that at the moment, really. I don't have any tournaments coming, and I also don't want to hint too much. It is something where you will have to wait a couple of weeks still. Okay, thanks for the question. Okay, the next one. Yep. Yeah, there's a question if it is an idea for black to play against d4. It's a question by Luxury Literature. If it is an idea for black against d4 to transpose into the St. George defense with b5, e4, a6. He says the reply he's most afraid of is 3c4. Okay, well, a6, b5. It has been famously played by Tony Miles, winning against Karpov in 1980 or 1981. I think it's 1980. It's a long time ago. It is one of those openings that, well, it cannot be great, but it's also not so terrible that you need to lose immediately. Can you play that? Yes. Should you play that? Probably no. I don't really see a huge incentive of doing it. Is it really so bad playing against d4 that you want to play b5? I don't know. I feel if it's a bit much giving white an advantage so early on. Okay, I don't think c4 is. I mean, it's a playable move. I usually just recommend to develop with bishop f3, knight f3, bishop d3, a kind of normal setup. Basically, what Karpov also played in that game. I think that's what I recommended in Keep It Simple e4. It will probably be in Keep It Simple d4 as well. Yeah, in d4, b5, I really think e4 is the way to go. Yeah, this is just not, not a great opening. It's, you won't lose like immediately all the time, but I really question why you would want to play a move that is quite clearly not so great so early on. If you want to play non-theoretical, let's say, I do understand that might be your motivation, then I think there are probably some other options that are a little bit less questionable. For example, some g6 based lines, or just saying. The second one I can answer quite clearly. As a weapon for black, what is my opinion about the following variation? g6, d4, bishop g7. My opinion is you shouldn't play it. It's just a very clear opinion. It is, I mean, you can probably play it and people won't refute it every single game. But if you meet somebody who really knows that you play that, and he wants to kill you, and he knows how to use the database or books or something, then he will find a way, because this d takes c5 is just terrible for black. It's just what it is. You won't get a decent position anymore. Yeah, you can play this, c3, queen takes, knight a3, and this is it's not possible to equalize anymore. And you will very likely get into trouble. I mean, you have to, work really, really hard to get a playable position from that. This is just one problem. Against c4, you're in some weird fianchetto system, or you have to transpose into Maroczy, also not great, or they can go into Benoni, which is also better for white, and so on. I mean, like, everything is better for white, and I don't see why you would want to do it, simply. I know it's in a book, The Sniper, but that book is terrible, and the opening is just bad. I mean, I really wouldn't do it. Okay, so yeah, I've done this. The next one is a little bit general. The best lines to play with black against the Scotch. The Scotch is also a wide range. Yeah, there is a Scotch 4 knights, a regular one. I don't know. It's a very general question. I still think, I have this line that I've done a video on a long time ago with bishop b4 check. I think for a less theoretical line, it's completely okay still. I don't really see a big issue. And everything is okay. Bishop c5 and knight f6 are both okay. They do require some study though, and it's not like so easily done. I think if you ask the top players, they will probably say knight f6 is best, but this is not so relevant for any other level than the absolute highest. I think black is okay if you know what to do. If you want an offbeat line, I think bishop b4 check is still okay. My video is a bit old, but nothing fundamental I think has changed. With a little bit of work, you can make it a line that can play regularly. The next question by Bagpipe is says he is interested in the Queen's Gambit accepted, and he would like some resources about that. And then there was an answer that Sam Collins has a nice DVD on that, and I don't have that, but the repertoire choices that he has made, according to the text, sound interesting. You know that I think the QGA is a quite good opening, and it is quite possible that I'm going to produce something on it as well. So maybe you just need to be a bit patient if you are interested in what I'm analyzing at some point. There is also a book by, I think by Delchev, that is quite reasonable, that I also have somewhere here in this maze of shelves. Okay, so the next, wow, there's still so many questions. How long is the video? 40 minutes. Okay, like some more. Next question. The verdict on the Grand Prix attack for white. Which side is it good for and why? With explanation by showing some lines. Is it recommendable and to which level of players? The Grand Prix is the following. I assume, yeah, knight c3 first. Okay, so knight c3 first and then f4. I think it is not a bad opening line. You can definitely play it. For black, it is, I think, quite simple to determine what best is. First of all, if black can play this, I mean, if he plays the knight off regularly, this move is a bit tricky because he could be move ordered. But let's say black plays this, yeah, just for argument's sake, f4, and now black most of the time plays g6. I think this is the critical line, and we get here. Now, I think that white should definitely go bishop b5 and not bishop c4. I don't think you mention any preference there. Yeah, I think white should definitely play bishop b5. Against bishop c4, e6, knight e7, d5, I think is quite okay for black. I would go bishop b5. And now, I think what is interesting, definitely for white, is that any move other than knight d4 is just not good. I mean, if they play some non-move and you can take on c6, play d3, this is very comfortable. So knight d4, and then let's say castling. And those lines are interesting, definitely. And I don't think that black players will be all that knowledgeable. It's a sideline, and it's a bit, it's a bit of a non-priority for black players. They often focus on their main line, their dragon, their whatever they play, and don't really look at this all that much. For black, I would definitely recommend to play like that. That is by far the best line. And for white, you should, of course, study all the lines to some degree, but focus on this complex. If you study this well and you are knowledgeable, I think it's a playable line, of course. I think this should be a focus. Yeah, look at this, and of course, yeah, it's good to know how to punish the bad lines. Yeah, but if you can, let's say, yeah, make this work for you, then you have a really interesting weapon on your hands. I wanted to mention that just to maybe I was too quick there. From the black point of view, if you decide here on a move, you need to be aware that knight c3 does not mean for sure that they play a close Sicilian or Grand Prix. They can still play knight f3, knight e2 next and play d4. That means if you're angling for a knight off as black, for example, and you play this, and now white goes here, and now you don't get a knight off anymore. I mean, unless you play e5, they will play d4 next, and then you have something else. For example, I don't know, you can get an accelerated dragon or something, but no knight off. So knight c3 for knight off players is a bit of a nuisance. Often they play d6 or a6, which kind of fits into the knight off, and that is also something different than definitely for white. So I don't think the Grand Prix is terrible. You can definitely play it. It's not something that I do recommend usually to players, but if they already do and their score is fine, it's not so bad that you have to give it up. Okay, now. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question there. The question is about lines like this: e4, c6, d4, g6 now. Okay, it's a bit of an odd move order. Okay, I mean there's c4, which could be an issue, but okay, g6, knight c3, d5. If this line is playable, yeah, it's definitely playable. Am I a huge fan? Probably not, but it is a playable line. You have to think about the move order a little bit, if that is a really good move order. Most players angling for that, they do it like this somehow, and then d5. I understand that you allow c4, but it's kind of unavoidable. It's really unavoidable. Or you can start with a caro and then play g6. In any case, it is definitely playable. What I, however, think, I just want to make a couple of some pointers. If white plays e5, I am fairly sure you should not play an h5 based setup, but rather something with f6 and knight h6. Yeah, what I'm talking about is there is stuff like that, and I think h5 is just not a good. I don't like that line. It's so passive. I would rather go a knight h6, f6, and try to attack the center. That I think has a somewhat reasonable reputation. In my e4 repertoire, I recommended for white this line, and I think that white keeps a small advantage there, but it's not like you cannot play it. So I think it's okay to do it with black. I mean, it's slightly better for white, but it's not that white can blow you off the board. The next question is the Maroczy bind as white. Can you avoid the Sicilian main lines and play c4 on move 3 or 2, transposing into a standard Maroczy bind? What is the drawback? The drawback is that here black can play knight c6, stop your d4, and if you now want to insist on that, for example with knight f3 or knight e2, let's say you go knight f3, then black has a couple of interesting options. The most interesting one, I'm not sure it's the most interesting one, it is the most principled one in any case, is simply go e5. And in this position you have committed your knight to a less than ideal square, because here you often rather want it on e2 because g3 a4 is a later idea. Of course you can go knight e2, but that is not very threatening. A different idea for black, even after this by the way, is to play something like this, which is also completely fine for black. The main reason however is that quick e5, simply blocking everything. Yeah, if they would play g6 you can get into Maroczy, that would work, but black will probably stop it with a line like the one I just mentioned. There are also other wacky ideas. I mean, they've even tried this in some way, but okay, that's not really a big reason. Okay, the next one I cannot easily answer. It's a bit too complicated. Yeah, I think there are too many. Yeah, there are just too many. I think I should stop now. Making this video longer than 40-something minutes is a bit much. So I'm going to stop and end the video here. I think we've gotten in quite a number of things, and I'm going to make more of these, of course. But it's sometimes not so easy to get everything answered. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, bye-bye.